So it's easy enough to move dots around on graph paper, but you knew this was coming. Now they want you to just do the equation. So you're going to take the original equation and you're going to adjust it to show a reflection. We've talked about the rules, so if the negative is applied directly to x, then you're going to have a flip over the y-axis because x is going to change. And if the negative is applied to the whole function, so out in front of the function, that's when we have a flip over the x-axis because y changes. So we're going to look at this question. It asks us to use the equation y equals the square root of x minus 3 as our original equation. And it's going to flip over the y-axis. So I can use my handy-dandy little sheet here, which I have filled out with my information. I'll post this to the website in a bit. But I've written down a little sketch of the gray box that was in your book that we've talked about and some basic notes for myself. And one of my notes says that if I have a flip over the y-axis, then x changes. So that's f of negative x. So that means when I look at my equation here, I'm going to write x as a negative exactly where it is in the equation. So I've got y equals the square root of negative x minus 3. See how that part here has become negative where the rest of the equation stays the same. That's what we're dealing with when we talk about a flip over the y-axis because it's changing x, it's not changing y. All right, so we're noticing too that, and this is something that your book is going to do quite a bit, the image graph is shown. This is not this graph, this image is this graph. So this isn't the original. When it says the image graph is shown, it's saying that that's the mirror image, that's the reflection. It's already been changed. So what you can do with your graphing calculator to make sure that this is correct is you can plug these both into the graphing calculator and then you can look and see if it's what you would expect from your flip. So if we're flipping across the y-axis, remember that if it was just drawing on a graph, I would make this a wet, sticky line and I would fold it this way so that the y-axis is my fold, and I would end up with a graph that looks like that. This point is negative 9 and 0, so this point would be 9 and 0. This point stays the same. So I can use my graphing calculator, and I'm just going to, obviously I'm going to hit the y equals button, and I've already put mine in here. But what you should do, and I'm just going to write this, there's just a little bit of a note, especially if you've got a TI-84 or more. When you're writing this in, you want to make sure that the root sign actually stops where you want it to stop. So you're going to write, you've got your y equals prompt, and you're going to write the square root, then you're going to write x, then you're going to push the over button. Fancy little, because that's going to stop your root sign from continuing any further with the equation, and then you're going to hit your negative 3. That'll give you that one, and then you do the same thing, hit your root sign, negative, the one that's in the brackets, not minus, x, page it over, minus 3. And what you should see is this coming up in your graph when you push the graph button. So that's a nice, easy trick for using technology to make sure that you've done the correct algebra, but don't be trying to rely on your technology in this case. You'd have a hard time doing it actually, but it's a handy little checker.